Alrighty, folks, welcome back to That's Just My Opinion. I am Merlin, and today we will be talking about part one of The Rhythm of War, book four of the Stormlight Archives series by Brandon Sanderson. I am so excited to talk about this. So, yeah, I got into this series about a year and a half ago. My husband got me into it, and I have adored it ever since. So, I'm very excited that book four is finally out. So, here we go, picking up with where we left off from Oathbringer. We have a bit of a time skip. It's a year later from the events of Oathbringer. So we start out with, as these books normally do, well, before we get into the year time skip, we start out with a flashback to Gavilar's assassination. All these books seem to start out with a different perspective on his assassination. This time around, we get Navani, who is really interesting because we see a side of Gavilar we haven't seen before. You kind of see more of his cruelty and how he's become something dark, and Navani was really concerned about that. Also, Gavilar had a void light gemstone years before the Everstorm, so what the heck was he and the Sons of Honor up to? So yeah, there's some more secrets around Gavilar that need to be unveiled. So getting back into the story proper, we have part one with our perspectives being Kaladin, Shallan, and her other personalities. Navani and Venli are our main points of views for part one. So we pick up a year later. We start off with and Lirin, Kaladin's dad, gets one part at the beginning, the opening chapter. So we start out in Hearthstone, which is Kaladin's hometown. It's been completely taken over by the Singers and the Fused, and Lirin is trying to do his best helping refugees. But then, of course, Kaladin shows up and the fight is on. We meet a new kind of Fused. This one can do like a teleportation trick where he like sheds his body and like zips around as a little red beam of light and then reforms, and Kaladin has to fight him. And of course, Kaladin ends up killing him because Kaladin is an amazing soldier. But you're also starting to see that Kaladin is having some mental issues. He's not in a good place right now. I mean, it's Kaladin. The dude is sad and he flies. Um, so yeah, he's trying to convince Lirin and his mother to leave Hearthstone, and he's like, I know you guys said you wouldn't leave without the town. So Navani has created a flying airship which comes in to basically joink the entire town of Hearthstone and take them back to Erethiru. It's kind of cool because there's a lot of talk about like the science on why these flying ships work the way they do, and like how it works with the fabrials, and how everyone's like, oh, this is the future, this is going to be a revolution of these flying airships, and Ivani's like, the tech isn't there yet. Like, it takes so much work just to get one of these things in the air that she's like, yeah, not quite yet. That's kind of, oh, and Navani is one of our other perspectives. I forgot. Yeah, she's become a major character in this one. So you get a cool conversation between Navani and Kamakal, who is the prince consort of Thalinar, and he's a sailor, and he's kind of talking about how, you know, these flying airships are going to completely eradicate the need for navies, and she's just like, oh, sorry, and he's like, it's okay, I don't know if I'm happy because I'm old enough to bid my world a fond farewell or envious of the young men who get to explore this new world. I was like, ooh, good line. Sanderson can go from incredibly poignant and deep lines like that to we do the stabby stabby thing. Sorry, I just love his writing style. Anyway, so they drop down. Dalinar's there. He's being stoic and in command because it's just how Dalinar does. But because Kaladin got spotted, a whole bunch more Fused are coming in, so the fight is on. Kaladin is fighting against kind of his main rival of the Fused, Leshwi. She's one of the leaders of the Heavenly Ones, as we find out they're called, which are basically the Windrunner Fused equivalent. So they're fighting. You find out that Dalinar, one of his perks is he can reopen the perpendicularity like he did at the Battle of Thaylen Field. It's not as grandiose as the first time, but it basically gives unlimited stormlight while he has it open. Dude's got to turn it off and turn it on again because it's exhausting for him to keep it open, but there's a reason why Dalinar keeps going on missions, because he's basically a Stormlight generator. So there's that. You also start finding out some interesting things about the Heavenly Ones. They have their own code of honor. Like, Kaladin's been observing them, because they've been obviously fighting them over the last year, that one, the Heavenly Ones prefer one-on-one contests, and that they will give mercy to their enemies. Like, if you surrender and basically, like, I surrender, they'll let you go. So Kaladin ends up, like, starting to figure out that, there is honor amongst the Heavenly Ones, especially with Leshwi, and that, there's some rules to combat, and maybe if we play by their rules, things will work out better. But anyway, the teleporter fused, because Kaladin didn't kill him right away, pops back up. Kaladin goes to fight him. He ends up killing him. And while he's, because he was going to try to save some prisoners, well, guess who's there? Moash. Goddamn Moash. I hate this guy. Okay, so Moash is there, and he really gets into Kaladin's head. I mean, he does full-blown, like, don't you want the pain to end, Kaladin? And I mean, he really gets into Kaladin's head. Kaladin is, like, unable to fight Moash. Syl is freaking out. And then, all of a sudden, there's this flash of light, like the light Dalinar saw, the light beyond honor, whatever the god is. And Moash, like, freaks out when it hits him, because one, you see, like, a shadow image of him, like, what he could have been, this great leader, and he's wearing a Bridge 4 uniform. And when Moash sees that, he starts freaking out and saying, no, take my pain. So my thoughts are that seeing as Odium didn't get his champion of choice with Dalinar, he's making do with Moash. So Moash freaks out and runs away, and out of this light walks Renarin. He comes and he helps Kaladin and gets him out of there. So obviously I want to know more about Renarin, because that dude and his little corrupted spren, what is his deal? So they end up getting out of there. Kaladin is suffering from some serious depression and battle fatigue, basically PTSD. They end up getting out. They are flying back to Irithiru to, basically regroup. Okay, so that's the Kaladin part. I'm just going to kind of catch up to everyone getting back to Irithiru, because the first part of this is pretty nonstop, go, 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 go. So on the other side, we have Shallan and Vale and Radiant. Yeah, she is rocking the triple personalities now. They are undercover trying to take out ELA Sadius, because of course ELA is a pain in the ass, and she is kind of starting some possible rebellion in the war camps, and they got to take her out. She's also now leading the Sons of Honor. So if you remember, that's the extremist group that Amaram was a part of before he turned sides to work for Odium, and now ELA is leading. So Shallan ends up getting captured by the Sons of Honor, and she does some fancy footwork talking to get her brought to ELA, and ELA's like, oh, you found me, you're from the Ghostbloods, and Shallan's like, oh, she knows about that, because yes, Mraize, the Ghostblood guy she works for, it told her to go take out ELA. And Shallan kind of has an agreement with her other personalities that they won't do anything unless at least two of them are in agreement on it. So they end up saying that no, they're not going to kill ELA. Adolin and his guards come in, and they're going to arrest her, take her back to Irithiru, have her tried, and everything's going to be on the up and up. Well, she dies. She was poisoned. So now there is a traitor in Shallan's midst. There's somebody who is, working for Mraize in her unit. So yeah, not good. She ends up finding, ELA gives her a cryptic clue to find this secret journal she had that she was working on to try to figure out who the Ghostbloods are and what they're doing. So Shallan now has that. And she and Adolin head back to Irithiru. They have some cute couple moments. You see Shallan dealing with her multiple personalities and how she relies on them to do things when she gets overwhelmed. So yeah, they all head back to Irithiru. As they're coming back to Irithiru, we jump over to Navani, who is hanging out in her little skybox. She's literally in a box that the Windrunners carry for her to get from place to place. And while she's in there, she's working on her notes. She's got this void light gem that she's like, this is really weird. What is this? So that's interesting. But while she's there, she finds a jewel hidden in her room, in her under her desk, and it's part of a span reed. She plugs it in, and somebody is telling her she has to stop what she's doing with her fabrials, that she's harming Spren, that she can't keep trapping and torturing Spren like this. And this mysterious person is like, stop now, or I'll make you. And Navani's like, okay. So we've talked to other cognitive Spren, and they say, like, it's not great, but we're not doing anything wrong. Even the honor Spren seem chill with it, and they're like, this person is like, the honor Spren cannot be trusted. So interesting what's going on with the honor Spren. So they end up back at Irithiru. We hook back up with Kaladin, and you find out that Dalinar pulls him aside to talk to him. Dalinar gives him a bit of a talking to about the letting of heavenly ones go, not executing them. Kaladin explains his, there's honor on both sides thing. Honor was their god before he was ours, which makes Dalinar a little uncomfortable because people don't like acknowledging that little fact. But Dalinar ends up retiring Kaladin. That he tells Kaladin that, you're going through full battle shock, which is it's PTSD, more or less, that he needs to get off the battlefield or dude's gonna snap. And Dalinar basically pushes Kaladin into retirement, and Kaladin is not happy about it. But he, as a surgeon, acknowledges that Dalinar's right, and that he does need to step down, and it's not good for him, and he's in a pretty dark place and ends up taking off. But then, of course, Adolin shows up and is like, we're going out, Bridge Boy, because, of course, Adolin does, because Adolin is our golden boy, and he and Kaladin have a talk where he's like, hey, do you know any way to, help Shallan? And Kaladin's like, no, really only Ardents do, but, don't leave her alone if you're scared for her. He gives some advice, and then Adolin gives him a little smirk, and Kaladin's like, oh my god, I just got tricked by Adolin freaking Kholin. Oy. So they have that. Then there's a really sad scene with Rock, our Horn Eater. Oh, he goes back to the Horn Eater Peaks to face judgment for saving Kaladin's life, which is really, really sad because we will probably never see Rock again for the rest of the series, because it's implied that he will either face death or imprisonment for what he has done. So yeah, it's a bit of a feels moment. It was really sad to have Rock leave, and I will miss him calling everyone airsick lowlanders. So yeah, that's a sad part. After this, Shallan, again, she's still trying to deal with her personalities and what's going on with the Ghostbloods. She ends up getting in contact with Mraize, who actually lays out the Ghostbloods' plans for her. Their goal is to get Stormlight off-world. Because if any of you have dug into the world of Brandon Sanderson's novels, you will know about this thing called the Cosmere, which is all of his books take place in the same galaxy universe, something like that. They all take place on different planets and different solar systems in this universe. So the Ghostblood's goal is to take Stormlight and get it off-world, but they're running into some transportation problems because getting it off-world, the farther you get it away, the heavier it gets. So they're trying to find a workaround for that, which I was like, all right, interesting motivations, because Stormlight is basically pure contained energy, so if you could get that to other worlds, they'd probably pay a pretty penny for it. So you find out that's the Ghostblood's plans. He gives Shallan a new mission, which is to get into Shadesmar and to go to the Honor Spren capital of lasting integrity and find this guy who is the real head of the Sons of Honor, because he's got secrets the Ghostbloods want. Shallan is also dealing with the fact that she is terrified that if she tells Adolin or anyone else about all of the bad things she's done, that everyone's going to leave her, and it's part of the reason her personalities are getting worse, because we might be getting a fourth personality in this. Right now it's called Formless. It's kind of all of Shallan's negative feelings and emotions. We'll see how it develops. So she's got her new mission, we end up with a meeting of the monarchs, and they need to come up with a plan on what they're going to do. Where are they going to attack? They picked up this Herdazian general who's like an amazing battle strategist. And he tells them, yeah, I know you guys really want to retake Alethkar and Kholinar, but that's not smart. You need to retake this other place that's far away. Dalinar and Yesna aren't super thrilled about that, but they go, all right, he's right, let's go. You also find out that Yesna is still doing her revolutionary ideas because she wants to get rid of slavery in Alethkar, which is kind of a big deal, but she's very pro that. So I'll be interested to see where that subplot goes. So they come up with a plan that, yeah, they're going to do this. We have to wait on Alethkar. We've got our plan. Let's go. Kaladin, bouncing back to him, he's got his family settled in Irithiru. He set up a really great clinic for his dad. Lirin has a bit of an emotional moment where he thinks that surgeons have become irrelevant because of the edge dancers and truth watchers and how they can heal people. But Kaladin's like, we've only got like 50 of those guys, and they are always on the front lines. Like, we still need surgeons. So he and Lirin are now running a clinic together, which is kind of nice to see Kaladin getting back to his roots, and hopefully it will help him get through what he's going through. Okay, one character I haven't talked about because she's only got 2 parts in this one is Venli. So Venli is our radiant singer who she has her little spren, her little Timber who keeps the void spren that she bonded with like trapped and under control so Odium can't screw with her brain. You find out that she is now serving Leshwi and that she has a plan. She has come to the conclusion that she's gone with my favorite faction of the I have to choose between sides, which is the fuck both your factions faction. She doesn't want to belong to the fused or to humans. She wants to create a new listener society where they are completely independent of both because it's subjugation under either. It sucks for the singers either way. So that's her plan. She's trying to gather people to her side, but it's slow going. And while she's there, you find out in her first chapter that something has changed. There is a fused who has awakened, who's going to change the tide of the war, and Leshwi is kind of freaking out about it. So in her next chapter, we see it's like a grand council of the fused hierarchy and the 9 who are like these leaders of the fused, who are like stuck in these pillars in the old Kholinar palace, and yeah, they just hang out there. So they're talking about the difference, like, where are we gaining ground, where are we losing, basic politic talk. We also meet that fuse that Kaladin killed, the one that does the body hopping teleportation trick. He's called the Pursuer. He's got a whole motivation where anytime he's killed by a human, he tracks down and kills that person. And then when the desolation the end of a desolation happens, he'd kill himself. So he's never ever been sent back to damnation by the hand of a human. So yeah, he's kind of got beef with Kaladin. But Leshwi kind of claims no, I get first shot at the Windrunner. Anyway, the big takeaway from this is the new fuse that shows up, Raboniel, who used to be one of the 9, and she is a freaking mad scientist, okay? She is like dark Navani. I think that's the best way to describe her, because during the past, there was a time where she tried to release a plague to wipe out humanity. It also would wipe out a whole bunch of singers, but it would end the war, so she did it. It ended up not being effective, but still, this is the kind of person we have, and now she has a plan to get into Irithiru and corrupt the heart of the sibling, which is the giant crystal pillar in the middle of Irithiru. So yeah, bad things be happening. And then to wrap up the end, and one of her things that she needs for this plan to work is for the bondsmith, Dalinar, and the Elsecaller, Yasna, to get out of Irithiru. And of course, at the end of this, the humans decide they're going to execute this plan to go and recapture, I think it's somewhere near Aegir. And Dalinar and Yasna are both going, to which I go, oh no. So they are going to be out of Irithiru. Kaladin is still going to be there, but he is just one man. So I'm hoping that Kaladin is able to do something to help them, but we will wait and see. Also, Venli, by Leshui's orders, is given to Raboniel to spy on Raboniel for Leshui. So yeah, now Venli is going to Irithiru. So this could be very interesting. We'll see what happens with that, because right now, yeah, Irithiru is like gonna be undefended, and yeah. All right. The last thing I'll talk about for this one are the interludes. We get three between part one and part two in this one, with Syl, which is cool. We've never gotten one from her. Ja Anat, who I'll explain in just a second, and Taravangian. I hate him. So we start out with Syl, which is pretty fun to get inside her squirrely little head. And it's during a high storm, so she like rides the high storm and she talks to the storm father for a minute. And then she ends up going and talking to Dalinar because she wants to strengthen her bond with Kaladin so she can understand basically his depression and try to help him. Dalinar kind of talks her through it, like, you can help him without increasing your bond. Like, hey, you remember when this thing happened to you? And she's like, yeah. It's like, okay, relate to him through that. So that is Syl's part. It's pretty cute. And just, she wants to help. I love Sylfrena. Next, we have Ja Anat, who, if you don't remember, that's okay, it honestly took me a minute, is one of the Unmade, the corruptor of Spren. She's the one that's causing all of these corrupted Spren. We actually get inside her head, which is super interesting. She's still hanging out in Kholinar, but you find out that she is actively working against Odium in as sneaky a way as possible, because she kind of wants to overthrow Odium so she can become a god in her own right. So yeah, she's not a fan of Odium's. That's her plan. She's also kind of interesting because like she exists in both the cognitive realm and the physical realms at the same time. So she's kind of got this like weird, like she sees both sides. It's really interesting. And she's actually sending a Spren to Mraize that will maybe bond with him. We'll see. But she also doesn't view her corrupted Spren as corrupted. She's enlightened them. She's shown them a new way. So I'll be curious to see what happens with Ja Anat, because is the enemy of my enemy my friend or my enemy? And can you really trust an Unmade to keep their word? So yeah, you find out that she's working against Odium as best she can because Odium made her, so they have some kind of bond where she has to be really careful about how she lies to him. And then our last part is Taravangian, who is basically going to sacrifice himself because he's going to betray the coalition during this battle, because of course he is. And he's like, "Yep, I'm gonna be executed for this. Love y'all. Peace." Pretty much. And yeah, Taravangian, freaking traitor. I mean, my biggest problem with him is that he made the deal with Odium in the last book that Kharbranth would be spared for a couple of generations or whatever. I don't remember exactly what his deal was, but he made the deal with the devil. And my biggest thing with that is we don't know how Odium keeps his oaths. He's not honor here, folks. He is Odium. He is the one who hates. I don't know if Odium will be like, once Taravangian's dead, be like, well, he's dead. I don't have to keep my oath to him anymore. Take out Kharbranth. Like, literally, Odium is an unknown quantity in how he keeps vows, so I got a feeling Odium could just end up betraying Taravangian. I hope Taravangian is alive when that betrayal happens, just to be like, yeah, everything you did was for nothing, Taravangian. Because I hate Taravangian. Though the one thing I do like with part one is that everybody knows that Taravangian is a traitor, pretty much. I mean, okay, all of our people know that he's a traitor. Like, Navani and Dalinar don't trust him at all. Yesna doesn't trust him, so they keep him kind of at arm's length, which I like. And that also Iole, going to say some of the things I really liked in this is I thought at the end of book 3, the Sons of Honor were going to be a lot bigger of a deal. They're not. They're taken out very, very quickly in this, which I kind of like, that Sanderson isn't drawing out his schemers, that he isn't, like, oh, do you want them to get caught? Well, no, they're 2 steps. No, it's things are coming to an end in a pretty realistic manner, which I like. So yeah, going into part 2, we have the basically entire coalition forces leaving Irithiru. The Fused are going to make their move on the tower. Kaladin is there. Oh, and Shallan and Adolin go to Shadesmar. They're going to Shadesmar to try to talk to the Honor Spren because they need more Windrunners. That's going to be a bit of a challenge. So that's where they are for all of it. Well, for what's going to happen. They've taken off to go to Shadesmar. So, some interesting theories and thoughts at the moment is one, with the attack on Irithiru coming, a little afraid that Kaladin might lose at least one of his parents. I think Lirin might die in the attack. I don't know, but Kaladin has such a freaking tragic life that, yeah, I don't know. It could happen, or at the very least, he's gonna lose somebody in the fight. So yeah, very, very worried about Kaladin. And then Shallan with her possible fourth personality of Formless. I kind of like the idea that Formless maybe is this darker aspect to herself, but not like an evil alter ego. Like maybe that Formless is a get shit done in maybe not the best way kind of personality, or possibly is the personality that forces Shallan to confront her issues, because Vale and Radiant are doing their best to get her to like acknowledge her past and like the secrets she refuses to like remember, but they're kind of doing it in a gentle coaxing kind of way. And Shallan just, anytime they're like, hey, maybe we should remember this, Shallan's just like, nope, nope, we are not doing that. So maybe Formless is needed, because so far Radiant and Vale were both created for specific purposes to help Shallan. So maybe Formless will be her get shit done personality for forcing her to confront things. I think that'd be a nice subversion than just Formless being an evil alter ego. But we will just have to wait and see for part 2. So anyway, for part 1 of Rhythm of War, I give it 4.5 out of 5. I am loving it. It is so good to be back in Roshar. So yes, that is my thoughts for now, and I will be back with part 2 in a little while.